The moment my boss called me dead weight in front of our client, something inside me went completely still. My name is Aria, and I was seated halfway down the conference table when Mark Halverson decided the meeting needed clarity. He didn't look at me at first. He looked at the client. To this day, I still don't understand what her role here even is. The sentence landed hard. No laughter. No correction. Mark continued, almost conversational. She's been here for years, but I can't point to a single thing she's contributed. If we're being honest, she's dead weight. Someone shifted in their chair. The client's pen stopped moving. Mark finally turned toward me. If you have any pride at all, Aria, you should resign. He waited, like this was supposed to be a lesson. I felt my pulse in my ears, but my hands stayed flat on the table. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't defend myself. You've never understood my role, I said. That doesn't make it unnecessary. It just means you chose not to learn it. Mark smiled, thin and quick. See defensive. I reached into my bag. What are you doing? He asked. I placed the envelope on the table and slid it forward. Ending the confusion, the client spoke for the first time. You're resigning. Right now I stood, yes. Mark frowned. You can't just walk out of a meeting like this. You asked me to, I replied, already turning away. Behind me, his chair scraped the floor. Someone whispered my name. No one stopped me. Before this story continues, you should know this: the story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. Each story carries a different truth, a different consequence, and a different reckoning. No lessons are recycled, no victories are borrowed. The hallway outside the conference room felt strangely quiet. No alerts, no voices calling after me. I walked toward the elevator without hurrying, already aware that leaving had been the easy part. What came next would cost them far more than my silence. What kind of person leaves a career without begging for mercy? Human Resources intercepted me before I reached my desk. Maya from Compliance stood there with a tight smile and a tablet held like a shield. Aria, let's slow this down, she said. You don't want to make a permanent decision in a heated moment. It isn't heated, I told her. It's finished. She lowered her voice. Mark didn't mean it the way it sounded. He meant it exactly the way it sounded. Maya hesitated. Why don't you take the afternoon? Come back after things cool down. I won't be coming back. The words landed heavier than I expected. Maya glanced past me, toward the glass conference room. Mark was already laughing with someone. Shoulders loose, victory easy on him. He thinks this is resolved, she said quietly. I know, at my desk. I moved slowly. Notebook into the box, mug last. I didn't open a single drawer that held company material. I didn't log into anything. The silence around me grew thick, uncomfortable. Jared from infrastructure hovered nearby. You okay? I will be. He swallowed. He's telling people this was overdue. I'm sure he is. I reached for my badge. My fingers shook just enough to annoy me. I forced them steady, unhooked the clip, and placed it on the desk. The plastic felt lighter than it should have, like it had never mattered. Maya watched me seal the box. You're not taking anything. Everything that belongs to me is already here. She nodded, like she understood more than she could say. As I walked toward the elevators, conversations stalled, screens dimmed, no one raised their voice, no one challenged me. Anger would have made sense to them. Calm did not. Mark passed me near the doors. He didn't stop. Good luck, he muttered, eyes already sliding away. I stepped into the elevator alone. The doors closed without ceremony. I didn't look back at the floor I'd built my days around. When the lobby doors opened, I left with empty hands and a full understanding of how much silence can carry. What happens when the most critical work is also the least visible? When I joined the company, there were 12 of us and a whiteboard that never stayed clean. Someone once joked that if the servers went down, we would all just pretend we meant it that way. No one laughed very hard. Can you make these systems talk to each other? The founder asked me on my first week. They already want to, I told him. They just need a translator. I stayed late because things broke at night. I stayed because quiet failures never made it into presentations. And someone had to catch them before morning. When orders processed cleanly, when shipments didn't stall, when invoices reconciled without drama. People assumed it was normal. That's boring, a product manager said once, flipping past my slides. Nothing's moving, nothing's on fire, I said. That's the point. He nodded like he understood, then presented the next deck without my name on it. Years passed. The systems stabilized. The company grew. New leaders arrived with new language, visibility, optics, storytelling. Mark's first meeting with the technical team lasted 10 minutes. He pointed at a dashboard on the screen. This, he said, is what executives want to see. I raised my hand. Those numbers depend on the back-end pipeline. If we rush changes, we'll circle back. He cut in. Let's keep this high level. After that, I stopped getting invites. Strategy meeting moved. An assistant told me one morning, leadership only. What about architecture decisions, I asked. They said those are operational. Operational became a synonym for invisible. A junior developer once leaned over during a late deploy. I didn't know you built all this, I shrugged. It doesn't need credit, it needs to work. But credit was how power moved now. And I was no longer in the rooms where power decided what mattered. When everything ran smoothly, they called it progress. When something stalled, they called it legacy. And somewhere along the way, the work that kept the company breathing was mistaken for dead weight. I didn't argue then. I just kept building, quietly, until the day silence was no longer an option. What breaks first when the wrong person leaves? The first message came 8 days after I resigned. Hey, Jared wrote. Quick thing. Order sync lag. Probably nothing. I didn't answer. 2 days later, Maya called from compliance. Her voice stayed careful. We're seeing a few delays. Mark says it's temporary. Temporary, how, I asked. She paused. Temporary until the next release. Who approved the change? Another pause. Leadership. By the third week, the language shifted. It's not a delay, someone said on a forwarded call. It's a routing inconsistency. Clients are noticing. Another voice cut in. They're asking why confirmations arrive twice. Mark took the floor. These are legacy behaviors. We're modernizing. No one mentioned my name. They didn't have to. Every explanation circled the systems I'd built, now being touched by hands that didn't know where the load-bearing lines were. At the end of week 5, an internal memo leaked into my inbox. Emergency workaround approved. Manual reconciliation authorized for high-value accounts. Overtime cleared across operations. Jared texted again. Can you just look at something real quick? I stared at the message. The cursor blinked. Patient. I don't have access. I replied. And I don't consult without authority. He sent 3 dots. Then, he says it's urgent. He can call me, I typed. Silence followed. That night, a group chat I hadn't left lit up. Someone pasted a screenshot of an alert queue spilling red. Someone else typed, we're duct taping a bridge. Another message came through, this time from a number I didn't recognize. This is Mark. We're having some unexpected behavior. Thought you might want to help clean it up. I let it sit. I imagined him leaning back, assuming I'd cave. I didn't. I don't work there. I finally wrote, and I don't fix problems for people who pretend they don't exist. The typing indicator flickered, then disappeared. By morning, the news had reached clients. By afternoon, leadership was still calling it noise. And somewhere inside the systems I'd left intact, the smallest fractures were widening, quietly, exactly as I knew they would. What's worse than being fired, being needed but still disrespected? The call came on a Tuesday morning, unknown number. I let it ring once, then answered. Aria. This is Daniel from Executive Operations, a careful voice, polished. We'd like to talk about a short-term consulting arrangement. I waited. Things are unsettled. He continued. We need stability. For how long? A few weeks? Maybe a month? An authority, a pause. Papers shifting. You'd advise. The decisions would remain with leadership. I leaned back. So you want me to fix the mess quietly? Stabilize, he corrected. Quietly, I repeated. He cleared his throat. There would be a pay adjustment, above your previous rate. How much above 10%? I smiled once, without warmth. You want the person you called dead weight to hold the company together for a small raise and no control. That language came from Mark, he said quickly. This is different. Is it another pause, longer this time? We can't restructure titles in the middle of a crisis, he said. This is temporary. Temporary solutions are what caused this, I replied. Silence stretched across the line. I could hear someone else breathing, just out of range. I asked the only question that mattered. Who takes responsibility when it breaks again? No one answered, because it won't be me. I continued, not without authority, not without acknowledgement, not without protection. Daniel exhaled. You're putting us in a difficult position. I didn't put you there. I said, you put me outside the room. We need your help. You need accountability. Another voice cut in, sharp and familiar. Aria, don't be difficult. Mark, of course, I'm not being difficult. I said, I'm being clear. We're offering you a chance to prove your value, he said. I already did. I replied, you just didn't recognize it. The line went quiet again. When Daniel spoke, his tone had changed. Is that a no? Yes. Final. The call ended without ceremony. I set the phone down and felt the anger settle into something colder, steadier. They didn't want correction. They wanted cover, and I wasn't going to be the thing they leaned on while pretending nothing had gone wrong. How does the wrong person rise during a crisis? I learned about the appointment from a forwarded article, not a call. A single line from a Seattle tech outlet, clipped and sent without comment. Board names Mark Halverson, interim chief executive amid ongoing disruptions. I read it twice, then a third time. My phone buzzed. Jared again. Did you see it? Yes. They're saying he's the only one who understands the systems. I let that sit. Is that what he's saying? Or what the board is repeating? A pause. Both. Later that afternoon, an internal email made its way to me through a friend who still trusted me more than policy. No subject line, no signature. Just a sentence copied into the body if this fails. We blame legacy decisions. Legacy. The word they used when they wanted distance. When they wanted a scapegoat without a name. Maya called after hours. Her voice was tight. They're rewriting the story. Tell me how. He's framing the outages as inherited risk. Says the architecture was fragile. And the deletions she didn't answer right away. He says the documentation was redundant. I could hear someone speaking in the background, a door closing. They've asked me to compile a timeline, she added. I don't like where it's pointing. It's pointing exactly where he aimed it, I said. Another call came in while we were still connected. Unknown number. I declined it. Clients are nervous, Maya continued. He's promising transformation. Fast breaks things, I said. Especially when you don't understand what you're touching. By the end of the week, the narrative had settled. New leader, old problems, necessary change. My name never appeared. But every sentence leaned on work I had built, then quietly severed from me. That night, Jared sent one last message. He finally has the title. I typed back. Titles don't grant control. They reveal how someone uses it. The city kept moving. The company kept spinning, and somewhere inside a structure he didn't fully understand. Mark Halverson was tightening his grip, convinced authority would give him mastery. What if the truth was recorded long before the lie was told? Daniel Wu's office sat above a quiet street downtown, the kind of place built for conversations that weren't meant to travel. He didn't offer sympathy. He didn't rush me. He slid a legal pad across the table and waited. Show me what you kept, he said. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. Audit logs, commit histories, authorship trails stamped with dates and names. I moved slowly, letting the pattern reveal itself. These entries, I said, pointing. System transitions, approved changes, deletions. Daniel leaned closer. Who authorized the removals? I scrolled. Mark Halverson, 2 days after I resigned. He exhaled through his nose. He wiped the transition documentation, not all of it. I said, he forgot the mirrors. I pulled up the timestamps, the deletions, the gaps, the ripple effects that followed. Daniel didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. This isn't negligence, he said finally. This is intent. It's control. I replied. He wanted the system to fail without my fingerprints on the fix. Daniel closed the laptop gently. You're not here to sue him. No, you're not here to expose him publicly. Not yet. He studied me for a moment. You want the record to speak first. I want the truth to be unavoidable. A faint smile crossed his face. You don't need revenge, he said. You need timing. I nodded. And witnesses. We can secure the records. He continued. Independent verification. Chain of custody. Do it, I said, quietly. He tapped the folder once. When they ask how this happened, they won't be asking you, that's the point. As I stood to leave, Daniel added, Most people come in angry. I said, now I'm accurate. Outside, my phone buzzed with a new message from Maya. They're calling an emergency session with the board. Clients will be present. I typed back one word, good. I didn't rush. The truth wasn't going anywhere. It had been waiting longer than they realized. Written into the system line by line, patient and precise. Ready for the moment when pretending stopped working. What happens when evidence speaks louder than authority? The invitation came through Maya, not Mark. Board session. Emergency, she said over the phone. Key clients will be present. There's one condition. I waited. They want you in the room, not as an employee, not as a consultant, as a requirement. When I arrived, the atmosphere was brittle. Mark stood at the head of the table, shoulders squared, voice already in motion. We're moving fast, he was saying. Stability is improving. What you're seeing are residual effects of legacy. A hand went up. One of the clients. Before you continue, we asked for her. Eyes turned. Some widened. Mark's jaw tightened. I took the seat nearest the screen and stayed quiet. Daniel Wu connected the display. No preamble, no commentary. The first slide showed timestamps, system changes, authorizations. The next showed deletions. A board member leaned forward. Who approved these removals? Mark answered quickly. I did. They were redundant. Daniel's voice cut in. Calm. They were transition documents. Removing them severed dependency maps. Another slide appeared. The ripple effect. Failures cascading. A client spoke again. You said this was inherited risk. Mark's tone sharpened. I finally spoke. Inherited systems don't erase their own documentation. Silence followed. Heavy, exact. Daniel advanced the screen. Emails, internal directives. The phrase highlighted in yellow, if this fails. We blame legacy decisions. A murmur moved through the room. One board member turned to Mark. You authorized this after she resigned. Yes, he said. We needed control. You deleted safeguards. Someone else said. To move faster, Mark snapped. The client pushed back their chair. We will not continue under leadership that confuses speed with competence. All eyes shifted. Our condition is simple. The client continued. Operational authority must sit with the person who built and understands the system. The room recalibrated in real time. Mark looked at me then. Really looked, as if trying to speak through sheer will. I didn't answer him. There was nothing left to explain. The board chair cleared his throat. Mark, we'll need you to step out. When the door closed behind him, the room exhaled. Power didn't vanish. It moved quietly, decisively toward the only place it had ever been anchored. What does leadership look like when it finally belongs to the right person? The offer didn't come with applause. It came with a document slid across the table and a silence that waited to see if I would flinch. Chief Executive, the board chair said. Effective immediately. I didn't reach for the paper. Full authority, she added. Infrastructure, staffing, policy, no carve-outs. Daniel glanced at me once, then looked away. I spoke carefully. This isn't a reward. No, the chair said. It's a correction. I nodded. Then we start with authorship. A few heads tilted. Every system, I continued. Every deployment, every decision, names attached, logs immutable. Someone tried to soften it. We don't want to slow innovation. This won't, I said. It will stop erasure. They agreed faster than I expected. My first meeting wasn't a speech. It was a directive. No more anonymous fixes. I told the room, if you touch it, you own it. A manager shifted. That's a big change. It's overdue. Jared raised his hand. What about legacy modules? We document them, I said, and the people who built them. He smiled without trying to hide it. Human resources followed with policy drafts, compliance with tracking, operations with review gates. None of it flashy. All of it necessary. A director leaned in during a break. You're not cleaning house. I'm stabilizing the foundation. And Mark? I kept my voice even. He made his choices. By the end of the week, the dashboards looked the same. The difference was underneath. Names where there had been none. Responsibility where there had been noise. Maya stopped by my office late. People are talking about what that it feels different. I signed the last approval and closed the file. Good. When I finally sat in the chair they'd saved for me, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like alignment. The work and the authority had found each other again, and the building was quieter for it. What if the strongest revenge is simply telling the truth and letting it stand? 3 months after the board meeting, the noise finally stopped. I noticed it during a routine check-in when nothing escalated, no urgent messages, no whispered hallway updates. Jared dropped by my office with a simple status report. "Everything's green," he said. "No workarounds, no alerts." "Good," I replied. "That's how it should feel." Later that afternoon, Maya passed my doorway. Clients asked who designed the recovery framework. She said, "I gave them the names." "All of them," she nodded. "Every single one." That mattered more than any headline. I left the office early and walked along the waterfront, phone untouched in my bag. The company didn't need constant vigilance anymore. The system spoke clearly now, with names attached, with responsibility visible. Mark's name never came up, not in meetings, not in documentation, not in blame. His absence wasn't celebrated, it was simply absorbed, like a bad patch quietly rolled back. At a leadership roundtable, a new manager hesitated before speaking. "If something breaks, I want it documented," he said. "I don't want surprises." "That's the point," I told him. "Surprises come from silence." He nodded, relieved. That evening, I reviewed the latest deployment log, clean, signed, transparent. I closed the file and leaned back, feeling something settle that hadn't in years. Dead weight isn't the person you silence. It's the leader who can't see what holds the company up. Before I shut down my laptop, I wrote one final note to the team and pinned it to the internal board. If your work disappears when you speak up, you're not expendable. You're essential in the wrong system. Real power doesn't come from being loud or visible. It comes from building something so solid that when you step away, the truth has no choice but to surface.